Well, as that calendar moves forward here into the middle of the month of May, want to talk about what is happening with weather as we continue to try and get this crop planted here in the U.S. Also, watching some different weather features still around the world. Let's talk about it. Joining us once again this week, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions as we take a look at weather. Eric, it's good to be back with you, my friend. Thanks for joining us. And I know in between my bottle feedings and my pots of coffee here the last week, really been trying to keep an eye on the weather, and that active pattern has continued along here over the past couple of weeks, hasn't it, Eric?
Yeah, and this is what this is this thing that we're trying to figure out. When I talked to Mike a week ago, I'm like, I think we're gonna break it down a little bit, get us some open windows. But those windows have been open. Like this weekend was okay for some folks.
Hmm.
I was in Springfield and just driving home last night from Champaign, back to Champaign from Springfield, Illinois. That's like 80 miles. I don't know. I bet I saw 40 planners running. I mean,
Wow.
just wide out. Everyone's going in the overnight hours trying to get this, trying to beat the rains that are coming in the middle of this week. And so the pattern had a failure mode to it. It just, the ridge that built into the west, which we were hoping to stick around to give us a bit of a break here, open up a good 10-day stretch of halfway decent weather, just kind of closed. The ridge moved back out into the Pacific Ocean, which was a bit frustrating because we thought it was pretty well advertised. So what that means is, we're currently sitting way above average on tornado reports, way above average on severe wind reports, and we're right about average on our hail reports. So do we keep seeing the severe weather continue? Because this morning it's in eastern Texas all the way over to the Florida Panhandle. They have an enhanced risk. And by the way, that spot in eastern Texas, I looked real careful this morning. You go just north of Houston, I don't know, 1,500 miles. You've got places in that part of Texas that through the first 5 months of this year have already got their entire year's worth of rainfall. They're
Wow.
almost 300% of normal on precipitation, and they're expecting to get even more rain out of this. So I've tagged this message with something. I'd say planting windows tighten back up. And not the message anybody wants to hear on May the 13th, but at least I didn't use the F word, which is frost, right? We're not looking at really really cold conditions either. So there you go, man. That's kind of the big breakdown. We thought we saw a pattern change, it didn't manifest.
Well, and that's a little bit of the double-edged sword I think that you and I have been talking about for quite a few weeks here is that on one hand, we want to get this crop in the ground, and we do know that, with the technology today, I mean, someone can go out and plant 1,000 acres relatively quickly. But also on the other hand, too, we're worried about getting the crop in timely, but also we're helping out with the deficits, the soil moisture deficits, the drought. I've seen that drought map kind of shrink in like Iowa, for instance, things like that. So it's kind of that double-edged sword, this active pattern. On one hand, it's delaying us, but on the other, it's giving us much needed moisture in many spots.
Yeah, and that's kind of the trick with all of this, because if you just think about what's going on in Iowa right now, I mean, the worst climate reporting district in Iowa so far in the month of May is still having a top 30 wettest start to May, and the wettest, which is across the north central part of the state, is having its second wettest start to May on record. So I look at all of that and go, okay, how do we balance out the need to replenish soil moisture with the
Mhm.
fact that we need to plant a crop? And my brain is, I'm sorry, this a lot of farmers probably won't like it, but I always default to hydrology. I'd rather be happy in July with the fact that it rained a lot in May than maybe the risk of not planting on the schedule that a grower would want to plant on. And what's also amazing about this is that over the last 4 years, Iowa built up significant drought. There are places in Iowa that in the last 4 years are 40 inches in deficit. But the hydrologic cycle is so fast, it doesn't matter for right now. The soil moisture for the large part's been replenished, and it's done so to the tune of some very tight planting windows. But overall, I have to look at it and be happy that we beat back US drought now down to 15% land coverage. I mean, that's phenomenal. I love to see that.
Yeah, that's a great thing to see. We'll watch the tight planting windows. We'll see what this week brings us and next week here as we move forward. Let's talk a few other areas around the world, Eric. What is the latest you are hearing in Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil? This immense flooding here, that last bit of their soybean crop that hasn't been harvested being affected here, mudslides, everything you name it. I'm hearing reports here. This rain just the faucet's not shutting off in southern Brazil, it sounds like.
No, it's interesting. Kind of the same thing that's keeping the U.S. pattern alive and going and moving so fast is also part of what's going on in South America. It's an entirely different hemisphere, of course, but things are related. And so what we're keeping an eye on down there is just the fact that the monsoon's now 3.5 weeks late. I mean, it's over, well, not late, but it shut off early, I guess. And the heaviest rains are just staying tucked away into Rio Grande do Sul, parts of Paraguay, Uruguay. And it's not just heavy rains. That's just the light way to put it here. I mean, it's an absolute deluge. Some places picking up nearly 25 inches of rain in the last month. And so to see the forecast coming through and putting down another 4, 5, 6 inches of rain in the same areas is just going to continue to really hammer on the crop down there and cause problems. Argentina's picking up a little bit more wet weather as well, maybe seeing some harvest delays in Argentina after what I thought was pretty, bullish news coming out yesterday, or not yesterday, but on Friday for what's going on in Argentina. So South America is not like they're having a perfect end of the season. Too wet south, too dry early across Safrina acres, and Argentina having a bit of a pullback from what was expected to be just an absolutely massive crop.
I think we definitely need to just keep our eyes on South America, see how things progress. Let's go around the world, the other side to Europe, southern
Mhm.
Russia. A lot of talk here the last month. A lot of the market rally and wheat has been tied to this dryness in the Black Sea in southern Russia. What's the latest? What's an update you have for us there, Eric?
Well, the models certainly haven't gone wet, and they were really cold in the Russian wheat belt for the previous 5, 6, 7 days, and not expected to really warm up quickly anytime soon. Like it'll warm up, it'll moderate, but not get warm. So models are still drier there. And I mean, the number of people that have asked me just in the last week is this, are we going toward 2010? Is this a 2010 repeat? And I get it because who wouldn't want a 2010 rally in commodities? But, there's still a few things that need to unfold in order for that kind of a, I think, disaster to happen in that area. But it's certainly something that bears close watching. Also, there's some drought areas across parts of Australia that need to be paid attention to as well. So parts of Western Australia extremely dry. South Australia has been very dry. There's recently been better rains in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, but we just have to watch those key growing areas there. And also on the flip side of that, more flooding in the Yangtze River and south of it, which I think needs to be watched very carefully too, simply because that's a major agriculture productive area. While we may not compete with them directly. I'm talking about Midwest crops versus Yangtze River and South. We still have to watch it for the broader global picture of things. And so, yeah, there's a lot of unsettled weather across the planet, but that's how the planet does things. Unsettled is how she operates. So we just watch to see where those anomalies get big and prepare to pay attention to see if they're going to move our markets.
Definitely. Well, and throw in there solar storms too here this past weekend. I know a
Oh
lot of folks
gosh,
were talking about
did you
those,
see
right,
it?
Eric?
I
Yeah.
don't I don't study this. I just don't. But I am an observer. So we went out and saw it. I've never seen the aurora,
Yeah.
and to go out and see it on we went out on Friday night. I mean, we were just kind of awestruck. It was amazing to witness that. And by the way, that wasn't the only amazing thing the atmosphere did. Did you see the Canadian wildfires over the weekend? We had
I do not.
uh, northern Alberta. The wildfire smoke made it all the way into Minnesota,
Mm,
North and South Dakota this week. In fact, there's still air quality issues, I think, out for Minnesota this morning. I'll have to go double check that. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is not the same thing that happened a year ago. This is it's a different setup that brought that in. In fact, Jesse, a year ago, like right now, we were 3 days into 50 days of no rain. So
mhm.
this was last year when the pattern had just snapped. Bermuda high left, and we got left in lurch, and everyone was happy with me right now. Like, oh, good, the rain stopped. Let me finish planting a crop. When's it coming back, Eric? I'm like, it'll be here. I think by the end of May, and it didn't return until the end of June. So I can laugh about it this year, but
Yeah.
last year I lost a lot of sleep, man. So I was losing sleep because of weather. You're going to be losing sleep because of a new baby. So here we go. None of us sleep, and that's the way it is.
We'll just stock up on our coffee and we'll
That's
make it
right.
all work. We'll make it all
Ah,
work.
got the
I know
Daytona
folks.
500 mug going.
Exactly, exactly, 100%. Eric, good stuff this week as always. I know folks could find you online, agweather.com. That's ag-wx.com for the latest weather information for your backyard and around the world. Eric Snodgrass, Nutrient Ag Solutions. Always good to chat with you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, you too, Jesse. Thanks.